What's happening, mate? How are you?
Very, very good. Very good. I just had a great call, actually. Do you know Dan Lawrence?
Dan Lawrence?
Yeah, Perform 365. I know you're an S&C man anyway.
So I know the name, but I don't know him. But...
Yeah. No. I was just having a good chat with him. He's remember George Groves, the boxer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's getting him back in shape at the minute. It was just a very interesting conversation. I still, even though I'm not, I love my bodybuilding, I still find the performance aspect to strength and conditioning just fascinating with athletes.
Yeah.
I think the capability of an athlete's performance-wise, because Nav, my old physio, Manu Tuolagi, is now signed for Sale.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of his training and rehabilitation. And he just says, mate, he's a fucking machine, but everybody along the way is just put him back together as opposed to got him back. And he said it's just amazing to listen to kind of the tales. I think I'm a bit of a snob because I like the tales of the Premiership level, but not really bothered about local football.
Yeah.
We all are, aren't we?
Yeah, it's much more interesting, isn't it? But he's just done another injury last night, hasn't he? So.
Oh, you're fucking kidding me.
Yeah. I don't know what the injury was, but him and Courtney Laws both went down the same game. Laws has done his knee, and I think it was his Achilles. I think it was Manu's Achilles. So, but
it's so funny. Nav just said over the years the physios that have ever been looking, because they don't look globally at the problems. They go isolated with the injury, and then they fix it. But some of the S&C training is still very much around just getting fucking strong, you know. So anyway, who are we to say? I'm just going to keep my head down and keep building, getting jacked.
Keep out of the way. Keep out of the way.
Are you all right?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah, doing
Good.
well.
Any more kids?
No, two's plenty.
Good.
There will not be any more. Good. But yeah, just plugging away. How's business? How's everyone up at M10?
We're good, mate. You know, the gym's really good. The gym's really busy. I'd say really busy. You know, we had a drop down from Corona, but the trainers are loving it. We've just done a big change with the education. You know, Dan and I have come together to kind of do the mentorship together, and we're developing all the education mainly online, but still kind of progressing with our vision of taking our personal training education up a notch. And I'm still doing a lot with the kind of my aspects. The book's taken off, which was fucking crazy.
Yeah, I saw that. That seemed to fly. That seemed to go really well.
I'll tell you a quick story. So I contacted the publisher and I said, I know I'm a bit of a numbers man, so how well is it done? And he said, well, we're not really supposed to give you figures because it just means if everybody is publishing wants the figures every week, it's like we do it every quarter. I said, well, we've launched it for a week. I want to know how many we've done. And anyway, he said, I'll look for you. So he came back, he went, you've done really, really well. You should be very proud of yourself. And I went, oh, okay, how have we done? He went, as a first-time author, doing 300 is really, really good. And I went, the fuck are you on about? I built the fucking launch up, done this, done that. And he was like, yeah, well, we think that's very, very good. I thought, bunch of wankers. And then 3 days later, he messaged me, he went, I was in the wrong platform. And we'd done, quite a few thousand, and for about 3 days, I went downstairs, sent to Marsh. I fucking read a book, and 200 fucking people have bought it, and she was going, "That's all right, Nick. That's all right."
Oh, that's really good. Oh, you should be so. No, that's great. Well done.
No, you should be so proud of yourself. After 20 years, you've only got 200 people buy your book. You twat. So, yes, that did panic me a little bit.
I bet it did. Well, so good to know that he's not a numbers man. Definitely.
Clearly not, and clearly doesn't know where to get his stats from. So when he said to me, we'll be sending you numbers, I went, don't worry, I think I can find them out for myself.
Well, you wonder what they're doing the rest of the time, just are like, no, it went really well, whatever, who knows?
Well, what are they saying to people? I mean, how many dreams are they killing? A guy's like 49 years old, writes his first book. He went, you did 120? Yeah. Well done. And he went, why would I write another book? But John was weird. I know how many messages I had roughly in my head, like not roughly, but I know there was I was sat on my phone for hours replying to people. And I thought, well, I've replied to more messages and that twat says I've sold.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say, like, that didn't sound like the right number to me. I was going to say, did he turn around and go, oh, that's what you did in the first 3 hours or something? But
yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
And how do you get fucking Amazon bestseller if it doesn't fucking sell. But anyway,
Amazon are selling a lot less than we're being led to believe otherwise, aren't they?
Someone's making some money somewhere.
All right. Anyway, we'll crack on in a second. So as I said on that message yesterday, like sort of lessons from lifting. I think that would be an interesting one for people to go with.
That one. I like that one.
And then we'll see how it flows from there. And keep you not too long, 45 minutes or so.
Cool. I've got to be on just around 5.
Okay, cool. No worries. I'll hit record now. I'll do you a brief little intro. We'll do a proper one afterwards because then I can reference anything we particularly discuss or whatever.
All right, mate.
All right, guys, absolutely delighted to be joined by Mark Coles today. Mark started out as a personal trainer, set up his own gym, M10, which I'm sure you've probably heard of. Great journey through the fitness industry. He's been going a while. We'll pick his brains and some lessons that he's learned, not only from the business side of things, but lessons from lifting today. That's going to be the real theme I want to look at. Along the way, though, we just talked off air about his book, Amazon bestseller. That's gone great. We'll pick his brains, some business tips as well. I'm sure will be useful for you. Mark, thank you for taking the time to have a chat.
Tom, thank you very much for having me on. It's great to see you. It's been a little while. Should we just use this for a chat?
Go on. What's the worst that can happen? Quite often, they're the best ones.
They are, aren't they? They are.
Yeah, well, we get a bit more relaxed. I'll have a cup of coffee. You can have the airways for a bit. Tell us what's happening.
Sit back and tell everybody what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think anyone that sort of is aware of you now maybe doesn't know your backstory. They'll see the physique and how you look now and the success and the businesses, but I think that doesn't do justice to your whole story, your evolution throughout it and your journey. Can you take a moment just to sort of walk us through quickly, what got you inspired, what got you wanting to lift and pursue kind of bodybuilding, and the sort of ups and downs along that journey?
Well, to be honest with you, I think one of the first things is kind of how I felt growing up. When I got to about 17, 18, I actually looked back through an old, I was at private school and we had top boxes. So when you go back to school on a Sunday night, you had a little wooden box and in there was the food, like sweets and chocolate bars and stuff, and just your private stuff that you kept to yourself. And it wasn't until I got to like 19, 20, I think, that I just decided to open it back up again and just see if there's anything old in there. And there was, MD, there was some bodybuilding magazines and pictures. And it was kind of then that dawned on me, wow, you've been thinking about this for a while. And when I was younger, bullying was quite a big thing at school. I wasn't particularly big. And there was just something inside of me that was always, the bigger guys got more attention, the bigger guys got more, better positions in sports. And there was a bit of bullying going on at school. You're a little guy. And also there was a perception. I didn't understand what perceptions were back then. But I know that if I look at a perception is in what I regarded myself as was a bit small and not really making much of a dent in terms of impression.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't have many girlfriends when I was younger. I was always trying to mix with girls and stuff. And I think that formulated, looking back, was a real important time in my life because I want to be noticed a bit more. And it wasn't until I got to kind of like 15 that I was at school and I had the opportunity to use the gym. And I can't think back to training. I'm not one of these people when I knew exactly when I picked my first weight up that I was going to be this. But I do know very clearly that when I started lifting weights, it made me feel better.
Yes.
That's all it did. And I'm not going to give you this story about I knew that this was going to happen. It made me feel better. And then I went through this phase of like putting a lot of body fat on, thinking that was the route towards being bigger. But in all fairness, it was actually feeling bigger in my clothes that gave me more confidence. Whether it was fat or muscle, I didn't know. But then I started to hit people harder in rugby.
Yeah.
And then I was getting these, like in rugby, everybody sport, it's like, bosh, I just loved the crash. And I started to remember how it felt for people to go, good one, Mark, big smash. And I knew that was weight behind the tackle.
Yeah.
And I actually started to really enjoy that. So then I wanted to get myself a bit stronger. Then I started to, like, people used to say, Mark, you're playing really well at the moment. Your tackles are great. And I kind of started to associate that with lifting, like having more impact with friends. And that was I would say a pivotal moment to why I really started lifting was to stand out, feel stronger, and feel more confident in myself, just like so many other people that lift.
Yeah, 100%. I can completely recognise that in myself and my journey, and then a lot of guys I work with that process. And you mentioned a few things there. One of them is the bullying. I mean, for the listeners in the States that haven't been in and around a sort of a private school in the UK, there's like a real hierarchy, and you're made to suffer if you're not like the alpha or one of the eldest as well. And just being
slightly vulnerable.
Yeah. And then that can go one or two ways. I mean, that can create a real negative downward spiral, and I think really be hard to pull yourself back out of. Or by the same token, you go the other way, and you're sort of building and realizing that actually, if I do the work, I can get the rewards and I can climb up and achieve so much more. The other one is you said you wanted to be noticed, and part of me, when you said noticed, I imagine or immediately thought you respected too is another word.
100%. I just, especially in sport and just around your peers. I mean, being at private school, like you just said, some of the guys listening in America, it's quite old school. There was old halls, and we all stayed in the same rooms, in the same like dormitories where there was like 6 or 7 bunk beds in there. Everybody would have breakfast together. So it wasn't a case of you could go home and sit in your room around your family. You were always around groups of people. So, if you said something, did everybody laugh? If you said something, did people follow you? So, I'm going here, and then people go, no, we're going to go with him. Well, he's more important. He's got more kind of clout than you. And so I started to think, well, if you start to build yourself, you start to get a bit more noticed and recognition and respect. And it's not until I got later on in my life that I realized that, when you start to notice these things, but you have the ability to control. If you want more respect, make some. Make something of you that makes them want to respect you. So if people didn't respect me because I wasn't very big, if people didn't respect me because I wasn't very strong, and if people didn't respect me because I wasn't really tough on the rugby field, if I make myself all those things, well, that's like anything in life. If you give people a reason to respect you, they'll respect you rather than saying, why don't you respect me? And I started to get more recognition in sport. I started to play county and representative rugby. I played regional rugby for the first team in my town, and it started to develop a good, strong niche group of friends. And I really associated a lot of everything that I was doing with kind of not even self-development, because I didn't know a lot about it then, but growing me stronger and physically, I associated with, as you said, respect and more social influence.
Yeah, 100%. And then, so you have that control, you can make those changes, but then it becomes like a positive upward spiral rather than a negative one. Yeah. And it's almost like achievement is the best form of motivation, and then you're more motivated, you try harder, you achieve more, and it just goes round and round and up and up. So that's that's a very obvious first lesson we've got from lifting. First of all, just filling out your shirt sleeves a little bit gave you that better presence, more confidence, and that had a knock-on effect. If we then follow your career, that's just when you were starting out, as just putting some size on. At that point, you were playing rugby, so you presumably wanted to improve performance, but actually maybe it was just, I want to look better. The knock-on of my rugby improving's a nice side effect. Is that fair, or were you? Yeah.
What actually started to happen, this was quite funny. It's a pivotal point in my career, in my life. I dislocated my left shoulder playing. Now, bearing in mind, I'd smashed my nose, done my shoulders, everything was screwed, and still is today, as those who was watching. But I dislocated my shoulder pretty badly, right? And I ended up having my one of my ligaments reattached to the anterior part of my shoulder. So for quite a while, I wasn't really doing any lifting. I'd lost a lot of I got a lot of neurological damage, and I couldn't lift my arm properly for about 8-9 weeks. And so I went back to the gym, and I was training in the gym, but I couldn't really do much. And here's a big moment change for me. I'd never been lean.
Right.
And the only thing I could do, because I was still training, it was around about kind of like 18, 19, but I started to go on the treadmill. And if I couldn't do weights, I started to notice body fat coming down. So then I read Chris Aceto's Championship Bodybuilding, I think it was, a small little book.
Yeah.
And he talked about kind of like cutting and dieting. So then I just said, okay, well, in the book, it talks about being controlled with your calories. And then I started to notice the body fat coming down. And when I got my shoulder fixed and I started to do my rehab and got stronger, I was in the changing rooms and the boys were like, check you out, ripped. And I remember not only liking a little bit more size, but the boys actually starting to notice, whoa, check him out. So when I'd go in the bar, they'd always be like, look at him with the abs.
Yeah.
And then I started to go, Jesus, I like this.
Yes.
I like this. And then obviously I started reading more bodybuilding, started taking more seriously, wanted to become a personal trainer. And that kind of snowballed on from there and it was all because, Tom, not only training in the gym and building muscle and getting stronger, but I didn't really know what it looked like. It was, I would probably say I started to appreciate body composition at that point, that really made a big difference with me and made me feel great. But because I've been able to do it to myself, I became fascinated with, could I do it for other people?
Yes.
And that's when I became a trainer.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So a similar story for me. Like I had a knee injury, career-ending knee injury, and then the first time I'd always been sort of skinny fat, and I'd always tried to get bigger. So all that had happened, I got fatter, and well, no change on the skinniness type thing on the limbs, but a little bit of gut type thing, which wasn't a good look. And then I couldn't train. I was on crutches for 12 weeks, but I was limited by what I could eat purely because it's only when I could be bothered to go to the kitchen on crutches. So I didn't eat much.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I've got lean. Like I was skinny as anything, but I had abs. And I remember that was the first time I was like, well, hang on a minute. Roundabout way, I've achieved something, and it's something that other people want, and that got my interest going. And in some respects follow some similar things, like going into the Poliquin and then educating yourself that way. But then body composition changes were a huge thing, and a huge thing in your career at that point.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have to say that, fast forward a little bit, and after a couple of years, a year and a half of PTing, I went on Charles Poliquin's biosignature course, which was all about body fat calipers and very kind of, that narcissistic world of you got to be lean, right? Or else, that's not a measure of a great coach, which really resonated with me because I was suddenly in front of somebody that started to give me the tools, not only add more muscle, but get leaner. And as I wrote in my book, Charles was a hugely pivotal moment because it's the first time I'd really been in front of somebody that was pretty big arms, not tall guy, but just big arms and very definitive in what it takes to be successful. And I thought, gee whiz, like he's talking about body transformations and getting people really lean in 12 weeks. And I went, I'm gonna go and do that because it actually was a point of differentiation for me. Charles made, because you've done it all. Charles made a big point in, if you want to make a difference, get results.
Yes.
And he was so adamant with that. And I said, right, I'm not only going to get results, I'm going to get down to 8% body fat. I actually went to biosignature at 8.5, but I think about 60 kilos. But I was very small, but lean. But still, Charles would say I'd got a 30 mil hamstring, as he would to everybody.
Yes.
But the funny thing is, I kind of then went, right, Christian Thibodeau, who everybody will know, he was on that biosignature course. And at the break, I went in and I was actually doing functional training, learning at the moment. So I was doing these kind of like, frontal plane movement drills in the gym. And Christian came in and went, with this massive clean. And I went, he's jacked. I'm just warming up. And I got these dumbbells and I was doing this functional movement stuff. And I was so kind of like new to the fitness industry. And Christian was doing these big lifts and he was back in his jack days and he was big. And I basically noticed on that day, okay, Charles is recognizing people that are big. Charles gives people credit who are lean, and results are important in the fitness industry. So bigger, leaner results. And
there you go.
Yeah?
Oh no, we've lost him.
Good. It's okay. I'm back. No, it's okay. Bigger, leaner results. And I honest to God, like Charles, I could tell Charles was impressed with people that are bigger, impressed with people that were leaner, and impressed with people that were getting results. And I went, okay, cool. That was a big thing for me.
Yeah. Well, I think again, like you say, I've done courses with Charles, and that emphasis on results. But then I think he deserves so much credit for so many people being successful because number one, he showed you what was possible. I think it opened up my eyes. Before that, you train people. My expectations of the result I was going to get with a client were here. After I'd been in those courses, suddenly I was like, "Oh, this is where I should be aiming for."
So true.
This is what you can do. And then if you demand more of yourself as a coach, but also you demand more of yourself as a client, and you lead them, you guide them, that's what people are capable of.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is also that praise needs to be earned. Results need to come first.
Hell yes.
And then if you got a well done or a little, well, it wouldn't be a well done. Like, it would be the most backhanded compliment ever. But if you got one out of him, you were like slapping yourself and you're like throwing yourself a high five internally, because that meant so much, because he really demanded excellence from people.
Well, do you know, we were on a seminar once, and this is so true, because I owe so much to Charles, because I was new to the fitness industry. I was new to gym. Like, I trained in gyms, but I certainly, people think, oh, you've known fitness all your life, Mark. I didn't know how to train anyone, and started in a gym with I hadn't ever done a training session with somebody after I qualified. Because you do your fitness instructor on a personal training course, you don't do a personal training session. So I came out of being qualified, went straight into a gym, knew nothing. So Charles, the word excellence, hence why it's a big part of my book, it's managing, it's having that high standard. And what I started to realize was exactly what you said a few minutes ago: expect more of myself. And believe it or not, M10's slogan for what we have at M10 is expect more, achieve more. Because we expect more of ourselves, we expect more of our clients, and collectively we'll achieve more. So Charles gave me this kind of, okay, well, a point of differentiation is getting bigger, a point of differentiation is getting stronger and leaner, and a point of differentiation is getting better results. And I came back and my mindset had changed. And I went, I'm going to stand out, I'm going to be different, I'm going to train harder, and I'm going to build a better body. But the funny thing is with that, Tom, is I absolutely love bodybuilding. Like, I'd watch these physiques, and the person that's had the biggest impact to look at throughout my bodybuilding was Dexter Jackson. Because of his midsection. I just absolutely loved how small his midsection was. And I had a photo on the wall at LA Fitness and just looked at Dexter. Now, you could have looked at my training and went, oh my God, it doesn't even look like he ever wants to be a bodybuilder. But it was here.
Yes.
I just was so far away from that journey. And it wasn't until I left LA Fitness, started my own studio, that I one day just said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bodybuild. And that minute that I said I'm going to build a body, a whole of the game changed with me. My standards and expectations changed. My training changed. But here's the thing. When I had my studio to start with, it had like 3 pieces of equipment and some dumbbells. When I reinvested into my studio and bought like 15 pieces of equipment, and I got my clients using more machines and leg presses and one thing and another, the results that I got went through the roof. So I expected more of myself. This is a lesson of lifting, that I suddenly started to train harder, expect more of myself. And as a kind of reciprocation, my clients just started working harder.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a couple of things there. First one is like seek a coach or a mentor, because so like Charles in that example, but you've had other mentors and coaches yourself, and they can fast track things, but also they can hold you to that standard. I think a lot of people expect the results, but they're not doing the work that demands the results, and they can, well, people that have been around people that have been successful, and guided them, they can say, you're not doing X, Y, and Z, you need to do these things.
Well, didn't Charles used to take the piss out of people on courses? He was like, oh, someone's been eating some cakes. And the funny thing is, I remember he said to one guy when he went to the toilet, he said to him, why are you riding a chicken, an emu? And the guy was like, when are you going to train your calves? And the guy was like, he was mortified. But the funny thing is, he would always say, I remember you said pat on the back. I was training once, and it had been a few years of getting to know him. And I did a squat, and he was a big fan of Astagras squats. And he came over to me afterwards, he went, good squat. And like you said, internally, I was going, ooh. But, like you said, he was a role model and a mentor. And that was pivotal in me making big moves.
Yeah. And I think, well, there's different ways about going about it. And he had his own, his unique personality, but his persona meant that you were desperate to impress him when you saw him next. Always. And I think if you've got someone where, whoever, if that's a training partner, a coach, a mentor, whatever, if you've got someone that's doing that, then it's almost like you've got a camera on you, CCTV camera on you, and like every decision, every set you do, you're just demanding that bit more because I'm going to have to show this to them at some point, and they're going to know, did I take a shortcut? So, yeah, I mean, he had that. He was already doing that for 50 people every time he did a course, though, because all of us walked away and had that same kind of, next time I need to be able to do.
Fired up. You want to come back and do more and be more around him.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And okay, so fired up. The other thing you talked about, you invest in some equipment, you don't need more. It's the importance of environment there, though, as well. All of a sudden, you're now creating look at this. We've invested in this because this is going to facilitate you reaching your potential, and creating that culture and environment, I think, is another element, that you sort of touched on there that maybe you could expand on a little bit.
Well, I think the first and foremost, if you're a personal trainer in a studio, and you can tell that the energy in the studio, like if you want to get better results and train harder, you've got to be in an environment where you train hard. I mean, I'll give you a classic example. I was training at a gym in London, in central London, in West London, for the last 2 or 3 years, and I trained all right, but not how I used to train at M10, my gym in Nottingham. But then I moved to Zone Gym in North London, and everyone's strong, and everyone trains really hard. And I've put my lifts right back to where they used to be, and way more, because you're being challenged. And the funny thing is, I'll never forget a lesson kind of from lifting for me was, you got to try and get around people that are doing more than you. Yeah, and in M10, I had coaches in M10 that were always pushing each other to be more, to lift more, to do more. And it's nice to be the big fish in the small pond, but I like being the small fish in the big pond.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so important when someone's lifting more than you, training perceivably harder than you. That in terms of, now the carryover to this, by the way, every time I pushed my body and expected more from myself physically, it had a direct correlation to what I expected of myself professionally.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Direct.
Yeah. Well, so I was thinking, like, if you're in the gym and you're the biggest, strongest guy in the gym, you're in the wrong gym. But then the same, and that carries over to also, if for the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And that whole, if you seek out challenge in the gym, then you're going to transfer that over into business, into all other elements of life. So I think that's a vital, that whole concept of challenge, and once you level up, take the next step. Once you've reached the ceiling of wherever you are, what's the next challenge?
I think you've got to keep asking yourself that question. That's what it always did for me. What are my goals? And that's, if you look at a lesson of lifting, if you've done 2 plates on a bench press, if you've been able to do a certain box jump, if you've been able to do a certain number of chin-ups, what's the natural thing that we do? What's the thing that your kids do when they finish a computer game? You want the next level.
Yes.
They're old enough, are they?
Yeah.
No. So what you do level 2 on a game, they were going to say, look, I want the level 3.
Yes.
We as human beings crave progress, whatever we do. If you go skiing and do a blue run, you want to do a red run.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If you want to lift 2 plates, you want to do 3 plates. That might take a while, but that progress in lifting showed me that if you set a target, which was a show or even a size, like I went from 83 kilos, I went to, throughout my bodybuilding, to 120. And I realized that when I was younger, I actually said to myself that people can't have what they want in life. It was a very fixed mindset that I had. Mm-hmm. Listen, if you're not financially stable, you come from a family that's not very well off, or you've not been very smart at school, that's the hand that you're dealt. I was very fixed in my way of thinking, mainly because of how I perceived myself to be. But then when I started lifting and I started to notice muscle coming on, I started to feel more confident. I was like, I'm in control of how much progress I make. So when it came to lifting, I went, well, if I can set a goal of getting to 90 kilos and it makes me feel this good, what if I set business goals and started working towards those? And I just started to go, well, therefore, the whole of anything that you want in life is achievable with a plan.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. That's so true. I think interesting. You talked about your own perception of yourself in those early days, and when that fixed mindset. And then that's one of the great things about lifting is that it's so obvious. The feedback is so quick that you put in the work, and you get out the result, and then that starts, that starts that green shoot of you starting to believe in that, and then again that spills over to other elements. So I think that's crucial, and a great insight there.
I'd be absolutely honest with you that I didn't realize throughout my life that I was as intuitive and observational as I've been. And I think that is a very, very important lesson that I've picked up over the years, to be observant of everything that you're doing. Don't just be blasé. Like if you set a goal and then stop and acknowledge what impact that goal has had on you. Because if right now when I said I want to write a book, right, we're all going to get doubt, fear, frustration, like at the idea of doing something. But it's only a case of knowledge and skill and taking consistent action from happening. There's no one that said, absolutely no way is that possible. And that's why bodybuilding and lifting and training and putting on size and dieting down and getting stronger, all of that has made me question and be analytical about the progress I was making. And that's made me be more analytical and question what was happening in business.
Yes, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, you mentioned knowledge, skill, action. If we look at that from training element, you seek out that knowledge, you go on your courses, you hone the skills, and you take action and repeat that action and refine it. The outcomes there for you in your own physique and your client's physique. But then that transfers, as you said, exactly the same over to the business world. So, you've expanded the gym. You now actually mentor other business owners, fitness business owners, and can apply those skills. Then you set the goal of writing a book. It's an Amazon bestseller, and then presumably those same principles, they just apply to everything. You work your way through.
You said about 15, 20 minutes ago about this snowball. Most people don't even start the snowball. So they see everybody else rolling snowballs down the hill and go, I wish I could roll a snowball. Well, just roll a snowball. And that is essentially take the first step. That's why I'm so passionate about the fitness industry and working with coaches at whatever level. People are like, do you work with people that only earn a certain amount of money? No, I love working with trainers who just qualified. I love working with coaches that are struggling to scale their business, And it's like, well, shouldn't you kind of work with one or the other? It's like, no, because I've done nearly 20 years of being right at that coalface at the beginning, and I want to give trainers that same opportunity. And it all started with a snowball, and if you can encourage people to start their snowball rolling, it's only, as you said, knowledge, skill, and action away from moving forward.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. So the knowledge, skill, action, as we discussed, applies to everything. And then you talk about helping people at all levels of the fitness industry, whether they're just starting out or they're someone who's already, incredibly successful, wants to go to the next step. But again, transferring that back to training, like the principles of training apply to everyone. How you program or to apply those protocols specific to them is a needs basis, an individual basis. And that's the same thing in business. The same overarching principles are going to apply to get your business to grow is going to get someone who's, just qualified as a PT, just the same, those principles. And it's finding, I suppose the skill then is having the knowledge or understanding of, all right, where am I on this journey and what do I need to be doing to get to the next step? And again, modeling what's happened before. So someone who's a few chapters ahead on their journey or whatever, taking that book analogy, that's where you want to be looking. And how do I go from here to there?
Well, I think everybody's got, they say that if you want to be successful, study the work of the biographies of people ahead of you, because at the end of the day, they'll tell you their story. And what they're doing right now in their life is actually very irrelevant. Like the fact that I've got what I've got and what I'm doing in my life is irrelevant to a large percentage of the fitness industry. Talk to me about what I did then. Talk to me about what I did at different points. Don't say, oh, you wrote a book. How did you do that? Wrong question. You're 3 years into your career. I didn't ever think about writing a book. It was just a natural up step forward. So the thing that I kind of, look at with coaches is, every single thing is measurable. Your training, your logbook, it's a data analysis. Do you know when people start a business, they don't look at how many PT sessions they've got. They don't look at how much money they want to make. Yet you've got a logbook of your training. So what did training teach me? Anything that gets measured and recorded gives you an opportunity to progress. Because if you go, I can't improve my bench press. Well, let's test your triceps and see if you've got any discrepancies with your triceps or stability. You have a framework of right now. If we get those stronger, realistically, our bench should come up. Well, that is identifying where something is dysfunctional and then learning the skill, acquiring the skill to be able to progress. With your business, if there is something that you want to progress, but you realize that there's something you've not yet done, if you do those things and then go back to it, it'll move forward. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, like, that's why lifting and training and pushing yourself harder. The other thing that it did was, and this is really important, the harder you train and the more you progress, the more you attract other people around you that will help you go to the next level. Now, I'll tell you that when I started to train hard, I thought I'm going to ask. I asked John Meadows initially to help me, so he did some work with me in the early days. Then I drove over to Ultimate Fitness in Birmingham, and I asked Jordan Peters. I said, "Can I pay you for a consult?" And I don't know whether he was doing many consults at that time. And he said, of course. And in fact, I'll come to Nottingham. And he came and trained with James Sutton and I and set us up with like a progressive overload DC style training program. And we learned a lot from him. But then you go on his radar. Mm-hmm. And then Jordan and I became great friends. And then we trained together on YouTube. And then other people would see Jordan and me. And then people would associate us together. And then I started being introduced to other different people. And what lifting did to me was realize that the bigger and stronger or the more dedicated I was at progressing, the more I would become on the radar of people that are inspired by other people's progression. So how we kind of word that essentially is in business, if you want to mix with more successful people, just start progressing, because you don't have to ask to get to know better bodybuilders. You don't have to ask to know the better powerlifters, but you have to get yourself on their radar somehow.
Yes.
And you either ask them for advice, and that is a humbling thing and a vulnerable thing that you say, I'd love to ask your advice. And they go, cool. But then if that's the case of them nowadays, just follow, maybe just seeing your posts, or you tag them in something of like what you do, and put somebody on your radar. Like get somebody to notice you. But if you've got nothing going on in your life, your physique, your training that makes you any way at all noticeable or stand out to people, then you're not going to attract the people that will probably take you up the next rung of the ladder.
Yeah. That's brilliant. But actually, what made me think, that made me think of while you were saying that, though, of course, is taking this back to the lessons from lifting. Is would you have, you said you had to be that vulnerable and a bit humble and pluck up the confidence to put yourself in front of that person, be on their radar earlier in your career when the physique maybe hadn't progressed? Would you have had the confidence then to do that? I mean, it seems to me like it's a bit chicken and the egg. You'd seen some results from the training that built you, and then you're like, okay, now I'm prepared to do that. But Mark year one might not have been able to, the equivalent of Jordan or whatever, to put yourself in front of them. So it's kind of like you prove it to yourself, and then that confidence rises, and then you're prepared to take the next step and be in the radar of people.
Well, if you want to go on your own radar, put yourself on your own radar first. And that radar is looking in the mirror and actually starting to see progress. And go on your own radar first, and then you'll appear on somebody else's radar. And you have to get yourself on your own radar by basically improving or impressing yourself. I've improved, I've grown, I'm stronger, I put weight on. And even if that might be on social media, documenting your journey. I documented a lot of my journey and actually showcased to people, right, this is what I'm going to do. I did John Berardi's Get Shredded diet, which was 14 days of 10 calories per pound with BCAAs in between, and got lean. Posted that, and it was 14 days. My abs came out. Never really seen them that much before. And then I started to feel more confident in the progress I was making. And then I started to see Jordan post on Facebook and on his blogs, and I was just like, I'm in Birmingham going to a course with Jim Stepani years and years ago. And Jordan was there. And I just said to myself, if you don't ask, you don't get. I've been following your stuff. Is there any chance I can have a consult? At that time, by the way, you have to remember that Charles used to always say to people, brain picking fees. You remember?
Yes, they didn't come cheap either.
No, $250, right? So you would pay $250 at the end of a consult with Charles for a brain picking fee. And nearly every seminar I went to, I paid him. I just sat down with him at the end, and anything that I was unsure of, I'd ask him the questions. or hire one of his other coaches at the end of the sessions to talk through some stuff. And so I got into the habit of paying people for their time. So I paid John Meadows to coach me and ask questions. I hired him for a consult at one point. I reached out to Mauro Pasquale when he was writing his book. He'd written his book, been out quite a long time, and I consulted with him. And then I paid to consult with Jordan. And the funny thing is, when you get on some of these radars of people and start interviewing or asking questions or paying people for their time, they start to kind of notice your progression. And that to me was pivotal. That other people were going to help me to become more successful, not just me. And in order to grow and put yourself on somebody else's radar, you've got to be moving forward. You've got to be progressing at a pace.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And to some extent, I like the thing, you almost got to have skin in the game then, like the fact that you've invested, they respect you've invested. You then feel like, well, I've got to make good on this investment. Now I need to take action. It's one of the problems with people asking for free programs or whatever. It's like, well, if I give you a program, you haven't put any skin in that game, then you're just going to ignore that information. And I think that's another element there.
Well, you're not going to get noticed. I mean, if you say, I want to bodybuild, and realistically you want to get on the radar of someone that's pretty well known, unless you're making some big moves, 80 to 100 kilos, unless you're getting in top 3 of shows, unless you are really training blooming hard, people have these aspirations of kind of being recognized and noticed by these people, but their actions are 20, 30% of what's needed to kind of, and I'm not saying it is essential that you get on people's radars, but ultimately you've got to make successful people notice you if you want to be around their social group. Right. And I actually knew, and this is unique to me, that I wanted to get to know, because don't forget, when I was a kid, I didn't have that social influence and wasn't recognized. So I've always had a craving for it when I was young. So thank you to Bullies. I'm grateful to you for doing that, because it made me actually want recognition.
Yeah.
So when I realized that even growing up that you got recognition from being stronger and bigger, well, if I wanted to go through the fitness industry and wanted to be recognized by the leaders in the fitness industry, I'm going to do something that's going to make you bloody notice me. And then ultimately, I remember going to a seminar in Tampa, and Ben Pakulski was presenting, and I asked him to go for breakfast. I paid him again for a brain picking fee, but it wasn't until we were there, and then we got on very well. And he then followed me on Facebook, and then he saw my transformations and my bodybuilding shots, and he went, "Dude, you've done well." And I went, "Thank you." And then he asked me to write for MI40 in the early days. And I knew that there was never a chance of me trying to get a consult with him unless I looked the part or at least trained properly. So I always, and a great mentor and an educator who's helped me a huge deal was John DeMartini, who teaches a lot of personal development, human behavior. And he always said that he's always had people on his radar who he's wanted to get to know. And I think that's an important thing in your lessons in lifting. Who do you want to train around or at least have a conversation with? And I kept putting these people up there. Jordan, Ben, James Hollingshead, knowing him, some of these bigger lifters, even Luke Sander, all these kind of guys in the industry that I've kind of got to know over the years, Kuba nowadays, all these people, and they've ended up coming to M10, and M10 is a great equipment which guys love training, and I actually still to this day am very inspired by a lot of the great British bodybuilders, even the ones that are coming through nowadays, because I can see that work ethic that they put in has a huge carryover to business and who they are as an individual. And that's what's inspiring to me, work ethic. And it is funny that, kind of like Charles in a little bit of a way, I will always help people, but I will always put a lot of effort in when someone's putting a lot of effort back. And that's still carried through all the way through my career.
Yes. Yeah. That whole you get out what you put in type thing, and you recognize that in others, and then you're so much more prepared to give back to them, give your energy. I think we all energy are, to them.
With the same with our clients, and I want to say that to clients, if you put everything in, I'll give you everything back.
Yeah. Brilliant. And then, so we taught sort of lessons from lifting, how that applies. We've referenced sometimes how that impacts on business. I mean, we've also, mentioned the book a few times, but not really gone into detail. You've written a book, Level Up. You take a moment to tell us a little bit more about exactly what the book is and who it's for and how it'll help them.
So Level Up is a roadmap to achieving excellence. So for me, excellence is a word I love because it doesn't signify excellent. I think that work in progress is the way that we should focus in life, just getting better. But I've had an amazing journey, and I think I know pretty well what coaches can anticipate as they go through their career as a PT, an online coach, fitness professional. And so throughout my life, I've realized that when I leveled up personally, as in personal growth and development, it's a big aspect of my life since I was 24. If I am strong with my personal development, so, I define personal development as being in control. And I think there's a lot of people that want a lot in life, but they've not really addressed themselves. So personal development and helping somebody cultivate the person that's going to help them to get to the next level. Where are your barriers? Where are your limitations? How do you overcome them? What are your own personal challenges? How do you kind of manage the emotions that you've had growing up? And I put this in a matrix in the book. The reason being, because so many personal trainers have self-doubt, low self-confidence, frustration. They want to get somewhere. Understanding how to manage how you feel about yourself and where you want to get is so important, because some of the biggest challenges in our career in the fitness industry come down to personal development. So I teach like a framework of that and how I've overcome some of the things in my career and how I can help people. But then the physical section in the middle of the book is giving coaches all the necessary skills to help them take not only their body, but their coaching to the next level. So if you want to be a great coach, develop your physique reflective of, or body shape or strength or performance, align with who you want to work with. Hire mentors, hire coaches. But then what are the necessary skills that make a great, what I class 360 coach? A coach that can look at every angle with their client and take a client from A to B, and understand how to break down every challenge that people face along the way. And then the professional, which is a lot of coaches are fitness professionals and they're not business professionals. And how do you basically take this passion, this intense desire, have a clear vision of where you want to get to, make you a reflection of what you want to achieve in your life, achieve a certain amount of knowledge, and then turn it into a successful business. Mm-hmm. So it's combining building yourself, building your physical knowledge into a successful business. And it's a framework of how you can do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, as someone who's sort of paid Mark to mentor them for about a year or so, we worked together. I can he's attest to the value that Mark brings, and so 100% invest in that book. Get involved there. Right, Mark. I know we're close up on time, and you got to go. So last few questions from me. Quick fire stuff.
Okay.
So either or options first of all. Right. Pizza or burger?
Burger.
Chocolate or peanut butter?
Ooh, I'd have to go on the peanut butter.
Okay. All right. Beach holiday or city break?
Beach holiday.
Mm-hmm. Right. Steak rare or well done?
Well done.
Scrambled or poached eggs?
Scrambled.
Oh, there you go. Job done. Can you tell us something about yourself that we probably don't already know?
I would probably say that people think that I love being out and about and hugely social life. I think a lot of people would have this kind of idea that, when people develop their success, they have this hugely crazy social life. And I always like to tell people that, I value business and growing the business. And I spend a lot of time with me and my wife,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's always, people are like, kind of, you're always here, there, and everywhere and meeting different people. And I always say, actually, I love my time and doing my stuff. And I think that always kind of throws people a little bit, because they assume that you're, here, there, and everywhere seeing different people, which is why they say, do a vlog of your business and your life. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of at home quite a bit and training. So the funny thing is, like, I train and I work, and I spend a lot of time building the business and my reputation. And that with a lot of coaches, they kind of think, if I get to Mark's level, I'll be on holiday and I'll be here and there. Genuinely, bud, I love summer holidays, but I wouldn't want to holiday for all my life, because I have a deep purpose and inspired energy. So a lot of people would assume that you spend a lot of time away holidaying as you become more successful. But essentially, what I actually spend a lot more time doing is wanting to build a bigger legacy.
Yes.
And that normally throws people a little bit, because they think that you're working to have less time, more time to beach. Which is far from it.
Not the goal at all. I think if someone had a day in their life, they'd be quite bored of you. Reading, being in front of your laptop for hours, going for a session, coming back, being back on the laptop.
But do you know what? And I know you love studying, and I've got books around me all the time. I love learning and reading and doing courses. And sometimes I think to myself, you do courses, just fill your brain. But as human beings, being mentally empowered for me is just so. I love it. And I missed so much at school because I wasn't interested. I love my training. I love helping fitness professionals and learning as many different methodologies to reach as many people as possible. And the funny thing is that fulfilling crazily. But I also mentor some guys that are influencers that love traveling and not being at a computer. But it's the most important thing is finding what's true to you. And as you said, if you did a day in the life, you'd probably look at it and go, really? But my life's inspiring to me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's just a little bit of an insight.
Fantastic. I think the other thing very quickly, another lesson that we almost touched on, it almost went on the radar, is that you kind of learning to learn. And once you find something that you're interested in, then you're prepared to do yards. Like neither one of us probably particularly interested at school, didn't necessarily excel. But then when you find something that grabs your imagination and gets that passion going, you go all in. And actually, anyone is capable of amazing things when they commit to something.
Do you know, you saying that, I know you've got children, but I'm actually on a call later on with my current business coaching program. And one of the guys has said he's struggling at the moment reading books, just going in one ear and out the other. And I said, because it's not interesting to you. So it's a waste of time reading it. And that will be my answer when I speak to him tonight, because everything that I pick up is inspiring. And when it's inspiring, it stays in. If you walk down the street, your wife is going to notice different things to you, because she's inspired by different things. And with me, I notice certain things when I read and books that I want to read that are different to what my wife reads. So, the most important thing is, if you can find out in life what deeply inspires you, and it's actually probably really evidential in front of you, you can see it every day, but you're just not listening, because sometimes people think that they should be something rather than actually what they is showing evidentially in their life to be the thing that they actually are good at. And if you stay doing that thing that you're deeply inspired by, then you'll grow immeasurably. But sometimes the brakes come on when you start to try and be something that you're not. And I think it's an important point.
Mate, absolutely crucial. Yeah, finished on a real pearl there. One last question, if I may, from me. If I can interview anyone in the world, who should I interview next?
I think that you would always have a very incredibly inspiring conversation with my good friend, Mr. Deepak. Yeah.
Then I will add him to the list. We might have to hit you up for a little introduction.
Ben is someone that is a great friend of mine, but not only has he competed at the highest level imaginable for any athlete in bodybuilding, but he is kind of taken himself still in bodybuilding, but now looking at multiple different areas of human optimization and performance. And it's an incredible kind of insight as to how you can take your inspired vision at the end of something and turn it into a purpose and a passion without just, I'm bodybuilding done, and then you don't know what to do with yourself. So, he's a hugely inspiring person and friend, and wrote the foreword to my book, but he's always someone that I know is an incredible, great guest on shows.
Cool. Okay, yeah, we'll definitely reach out to Deepak and try and get him on. Mark, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure. Great insight for all the listeners. Make sure you check out Level Up, guys. The book available on Amazon. I'm sure you won't regret that. And then quickly, Mark, take a moment. Anyone wants to get involved in your world, where can they find out more about you?
Well, as of about a week's time, I got a new website going up, so you'll be able to go to m10life.com. That is essentially our center of excellence for fitness professionals. But if you want to follow my journey and connect with me on social media, Mark Coles M10 on Instagram, and I will happily, always do, answer any questions or put you in the direction of anything that you want to know more about. So.
Awesome. All right, we'll make sure the links are in the show notes and go check those out. Do yourself a favor, get involved. Mark, thank you very much. We will speak again soon, mate.
Mate, thank you ever so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
That wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for investing your time with us. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed what you heard and took value from it, please do me a favor by heading to iTunes right now, subscribing to the show, and leaving a review. Positive reviews, like 5 stars, hint, hint, really help the ranking of the show and will help us to spread the word and keep getting top-class guests on. Make sure to follow Breaking Muscle on social media and me at Tom McCormick, that's TOMMACCORMICK on Instagram. Bye for now, and I'm looking forward to catching you on the next episode of the Breaking Muscle podcast.